What's up guys, Sagi here and welcome to another Tech Gear Talk video. Today we're going to check out the new Fuji X-T3, which might be the best bang for the buck when it comes to mirrorless cameras. We're going to talk about why I'm such a fan of this camera and why I think it's an excellent choice for professional quality video and photography. Now the X-T3 offers some significant improvements over the already impressive X-T2. It brings to the table a brand new sensor, improved autofocus, and excellent video performance. And this camera has some unbelievable specs and features, and at the same time there were some things that I wasn't necessarily a huge fan of. Now my goal with every product review is to give you a detailed overview of the product features in a way that relate to real life use. And if you find it helpful, please let me know by giving it a like and then hitting the subscribe and notification buttons for more camera and tech reviews. I've added links in the description to where you can buy the X-T3 and some of my favorite accessories, and at the same time help support my channel for free and allow me to create more content. I'm going to get into the details for each aspect of this camera, and there's a lot of great stuff in the additional feature section, so make sure you watch that segment. I'll start out with some overall key features. The X-T3 has a beautiful weather-sealed magnesium alloy body. It has a 26.1 megapixel APS-C X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor and uses a 425-point hybrid autofocus system. It uses the X processor 4 with a quad CPU, which is a beast and helps with operating speed and performance, as well as excellent image quality. It has a 3-inch, 3-way tilting LCD screen and can internally record 4K 60 FPS 10-bit video, which is ridiculous. There's a fantastic OLED electronic viewfinder, and it can shoot continuously at up to 11 frames per second with a mechanical shutter and up to a crazy 30 frames per second with an electronic shutter. Finally, it has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth so that you can easily move images to your mobile device and even control the camera remotely. I've tried a few other Fuji cameras in the past, and I was so excited to get my hands on the X-T3, so let's get to the detailed review. The X-T3 comes with a phenomenal 26.1 megapixel APS-C X-Trans CMOS 4 sensor. This is a fantastic option for anyone who wants to get outstanding performance but is not interested in a full-frame sensor camera. In general, the bigger the sensor, the better it is. And bigger sensor means better image quality because it's able to use more information to create an image with more detail and better dynamic range. Now, this APS-C sensor is excellent if you're shooting portraits, landscapes, sports, if you're doing street photography, if you want to take it with you while you travel, or even just do family and lifestyle photography. Now this new sensor helps add a camera to the XT line, which challenges cameras like the Panasonic GH5 for video. It's going to give you beautiful crisp video, and I've been so impressed with Fuji's color. That was the sensor. Let's talk a little bit about the processor. And here Fuji opted for the X processor 4, which uses 4 CPUs for better and faster image processing. Together with a nice sensor, you're going to get sharper images and video and really nice low light performance. The X processor 4 also makes the camera really fast to operate. So the X-T3 is very nice and responsive for both photography and stills. The general menu operation is fast. It has very quick startup, and things like image preview and video playback again are very fast. Now for photography, the X processor 4 allows the X-T3 to have 11 frames burst or continuous shooting with continuous autofocus when using a mechanical shutter. Now if you're willing to use the electronic shutter and add a 1.25x crop, you can shoot at 30 frames per second, and that's just silly fast. So I can just get focus and hold down the shutter and the camera will just keep on firing. This is a nice feature to have if you're photographing your kids running around, if you're at a sporting event, or any time when you're shooting any fast-moving subjects. There's also a sports finder mode where you can use the viewfinder or the LCD screen to see a cropped area of the photo. Now, I've never had that in a camera before, and it's nice because you can see things as they're just about to enter the frame, and then it's easier to anticipate when the action is going to happen, and then you pretty much always get your shot. From a video standpoint, the X Processor 4 is what lets the X-T3 record internally at up to 4K 60 frames per second 10-bit video. Next, I want to talk about resolution and frame rates. For stills, the X-T3 has a maximum resolution of 6,240 by 4160, which is more than what most people would ever need. And I can of course shoot in both JPEG and RAW, so you can decide how much information you want to capture depending on what you plan on doing with the images in post-production. Now for video, the X-T3 can record 4K video at up to 60 frames per second and Full HD or 1080p at 24, 30, 60, and 120 frames per second. And this comes down to what kind of look you prefer to have for your video. If you like a more cinematic look, then you can go with 24 frames per second. If you like things to be more sharp and crisp, then you can shoot at 60 frames per second. I shoot most of my videos, including this one, at 30 frames per second because I like to go somewhere in between. Now, if you edit your videos at 1080p 30 like I do, you can play your 120 frames per second footage at 30 frames per second and then slow things down by a factor of 4. Even if your final output is 4K 30, you can still slow down your 4K 60 by 50%. So that's a really nice feature, and both of these options are outstanding at this price. And this is something that I absolutely love and is currently missing from my setup. Now, the X-T3 can internally record 4K 60 at 420 10-bit, and it can record 4K 60 422 10-bit via HDMI, both at 400 megabits per second. I'm not going to go into the difference here, but if this is something that you're familiar with, then you'll appreciate having the option. Now, because the X-T3 offers a clean HDMI out, it's also a good option for live streaming. You can simply use a micro HDMI to HDMI cable and connect the X-T3 right to a capture card. Alright, let's move on to lens options. The X-T3 uses Fuji's X mount, and the kit I got has an 18 to 55mm 2.8 to 4.0 with optical image stabilization. What's really nice about buying a Fuji mirrorless camera is that there's an extensive line of fantastic lens options. There are a ton of affordable, really fast prime lenses, as well as some excellent zoom lenses. And I'll add some links in the description to some of my favorites. One thing to remember is that because the X-T3 has an APS-C sensor and not a full frame sensor, there is a crop factor of 1.5x. Which means that you have to take the focal length on the lens and multiply by 1.5 in order to get the 35mm equivalent. So for example, this lens is an 18 to 55, which when I multiply by 1.5 actually makes it a 27 to 83. What it means is that 18 is not as wide as an 18 lens would be on a full frame sensor camera, but it's the same as a 27mm lens on a full sensor camera. The important thing is that you have options, and you're not stuck with a fixed lens. That lets you buy the X-T3 with maybe only one lens, but then continue to build on this camera body as your needs change. Alright, next, let's talk about autofocus. And this is something that I always say you shouldn't overlook when choosing a camera. And with the X-T3, Fuji made some significant improvements. This has been somewhat of a weak spot for Fuji. The X-T2 stepped things up a bit and was quite good at single autofocus. It was able to do decent subject tracking as long as the subject was clearly isolated from the background. Now moving on to the X-T3, that's taken another leap forward, and it's pretty fast to focus, and the autofocus system pretty much covers the entire sensor area. There is also a face and eye detection option, and then a continuous autofocus feature. Now, face and eye detection helps you keep a person in focus even as they move through the frame and make it closer or farther away from the camera. And continuous autofocus is great for when you're trying to take shots of a moving car or a child running around. And for example, once you get focus, you may want to just hold down the shutter and continue to shoot in burst mode, and then you want the camera to constantly change focus. And continuous autofocus can be set to a specific area of the screen, which is great for shooting off-center subjects. It's also great for video when there's camera movement. So if the camera is on a slider or if it's on a gimbal or a stabilizer, it's nice to know that you can just move around and point the camera at the subject and the camera will take care of focus for you. Now, there are some limitations to this autofocus system that I wanted to mention. First, when it comes to face and eye detection, you can't select whose face you want the X-T3 to focus on. So if there are multiple people in the frame, the camera will choose for you. Now next, the X-T3 can't do subject tracking like the Canon dual pixel autofocus or the Sony autofocus system. So you can't just click on an object on the screen and have the autofocus point follow them around the frame. Now for the purpose of creating YouTube content or professional video, I think good continuous autofocus is definitely a feature that you're gonna want. And even with the slight limitations that I mentioned, the X-T3 performed pretty well in my videos. Something else that I love about the X-T3 for video is that it has a 3.5mm mic input, and that's a great feature if you want higher production value because it lets you use an external microphone instead of the built-in one. So I can easily connect a shotgun mic and I'm all set. And this is a really nice compact setup. It's light, you'll get great video and great audio. It's just perfect for vlogging, shooting talking head, and really any time when you want a more directional sound pickup, instead of the omnidirectional microphone that will pick up sound from everywhere. If you're interested in some excellent microphone options, I'll add some links to a pretty extensive microphone review that I did, which will easily help you find a microphone in your budget. I'll also put links in the description to some of my favorites. Now, as far as using a lavalier microphone, I can use a wired lav if I don't mind being tethered to the camera, or I can even go wireless if I want. I can connect my Sennheiser AVX with the XLR to 3.5mm adapter to the camera, and I'm good to go. That lets me quickly move from one type of shot to another without having to worry about where the mic is positioned. Another awesome feature for video that Fuji included is a headphone jack. So now I can monitor my audio in real time. This is an excellent option for a lot of users, and being able to monitor your audio can save you a ton of time in post-production. Next, let's talk about the size, weight, and build quality of the X-T3. We know it's a mirrorless camera, so it's already going to be small and light. And that's true for both the body itself and the lenses. And even with the kit lens, it's still well under 2 pounds, which is really great for how powerful this camera is. Aesthetically, we have a rugged magnesium alloy rangefinder style body. It's weather sealed against moisture and dust, and there are a ton of analog controls. Now this is something that was pretty intimidating at first. It looks really complicated. What's great is that because there are so many controls on the X-T3, I ended up moving the controls around to where I didn't really use these dials, and I could just use my right hand to change ISO and shutter speed, and then the aperture control is right here on the lens. Now overall, this was not my favorite user experience. Having to use these dials made the adjustments more cumbersome than I would like. Fuji added a nice bright OLED electronic viewfinder, which is really nice to have. It's especially helpful when you're taking photos outside because it eliminates the problem that you might have when it's super bright or in any other situation where it's really difficult to see the screen on the back. Now from a size standpoint, the X-T3 strikes a really nice balance between portability and ergonomics. It's small enough to where I can just put it in my jacket pocket, but it isn't so small that it feels uncomfortable to hold and use. Now this grip is excellent for a mirrorless camera, and there's this rubbery grip all the way around the body and it feels very secure in my hand. I really like having a grip like this on a camera, especially when there are times where I'm gonna use it without a camera strap. If you're looking for a great camera strap, check out Black Rapid, which I've been using for almost 10 years. I did a review of my favorite strap, the Curve Breathe, and I have a giveaway going out right now. So if you're interested in a chance to win, again, a fantastic camera strap for free, check it out. If you're using a standard camera strap, you're definitely gonna wanna take a look. There's a reason why I spent over $60 on a camera strap, and it's not the fact that I like to waste money. Let's talk a little bit about the screen. So the X-T3 has a 3-way tilting 3-inch touchscreen. And you can have it face you if you want to work with the camera lower than eye level or on a slider, for example. A lot of times I like to have the camera pretty much on the ground, and I love the fact that I don't have to get like all the way down on the ground in order to frame my shots. If you're shooting and holding the camera up in the air, you can actually point the screen down, and that works great for overhead shots. And there's also a way to partially, see, look at that, you can kind of tilt this screen to the side, and that's really great if you're shooting in portrait mode and the camera is below you, you can still see the screen. So like that's a really nice feature. Now this isn't as flexible as a fully articulating screen, and I was really hoping to see more companies start to implement a fully articulating design. This means that if you plan on shooting and being in front of the camera, there's no way for you to frame yourself and preview the shot without using an external monitor. Now this may or may not matter in your particular application, but I think it's worth mentioning. Now it's almost a full touchscreen. So what I mean by that is that you can set focus by clicking on the screen, and you can control the quick menu options, but you can't control the main menu using the touchscreen or change various settings in the camera. And you have to use this little joystick here. Now the screen is nice and bright, and it worked great for me both indoor and outdoors. Next, let's talk about connectivity options. The X-T3 has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which lets you use the Fuji Cam Remote app to pair the camera with a smartphone or a tablet and then wirelessly share your images and movies. And this is awesome when you're doing a shoot and maybe you took some great pictures or a video and you quickly want to post them to Instagram or Facebook. You can just transfer the images right to your phone, do a quick edit, and post. What's great is that Fuji didn't stop there. They also added an option to control the camera for both photography and video using a mobile device. Now for photography, it's nice to be able to use your phone as a remote shutter. This way you're not disrupting the camera if you're doing stuff like product photography or any time when you're doing a long exposure. For video, when I vlog or anytime where I'm in front of the camera, it's great to be able to control the camera remotely. It's nice to make sure that I'm framed correctly and make adjustments, set focus, and then start or stop the video without having to get up every time. Now that's huge when you're working alone. You can literally use your phone as a remote monitor. There is a slight delay, but it's an awesome feature and I use it all the time. I also want to talk about other features that this camera has that may help you make a buying decision. First, I want to talk about image stabilization, and the X-T3 does not have in-body image stabilization, which may be an issue for you if you plan on shooting video handheld or when using slower shutter speeds. Now for me, this is something that I usually use in addition to a 3-axis gimbal or a slider, so I really like having it when possible. As usual, it comes down to how you plan on using the camera. Next, I want to talk about time-lapse, and the X-T3 does not do in-body time-lapse, but it does have a built-in intervalometer. So you can select the interval time shooting option under the shooting setting menu, then set your interval in hours or minutes and seconds, and then finally set how many shots you want the camera to take. You then select how long you want the camera to wait before starting to shoot, and you click OK to start. Now I am shooting a more detailed video about how to do a time lapse with the X-T3, so if you're interested, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. All right, there are no presets available by default, so you can't save time-lapse presets. You'll need to set those every time you want to shoot a time lapse. Next, I want to discuss the battery life. And the X-T3 uses an NP-W126S lithium-ion battery that's rated for 390 images. Now, a fair comparison would be something like the Sony a6500, which has a battery life rated for 350 images. And as with almost all mirrorless cameras, I recommend buying an additional battery if you plan on shooting a lot. I usually get 2 additional batteries just to be safe. I hate running out of batteries. Now the X-T3 can be charged by a USB-C cable, and I really like this feature because sometimes I opt for an external battery pack instead of additional batteries. And this way I can have the battery charging while it's in my pocket or in my bag, and I'm always keeping a full battery when I'm on the go. Another really nice add-on is that Fuji included a compact flash with the X-T3. So the EFX8 slides right onto the hot shoe and then flips up. While it's pretty small, I found that it's really powerful, and I was able to get great shots with it. I like it better than pretty much any built-in flip-up flash that I've used. Now, the last thing I want to mention is the dual SD card slots, which offer me more flexible and reliable means of storing my media. So just a few examples, I can set one card for JPEGs and the other one to RAW. And that way I have both options later on and I can choose which one to use. Or I can just have the camera save the same file on both cards and then I immediately have a backup. Okay, so I think the X-T3 could be the best camera to offer a great balance of image quality for photography and video functionality. If you're ready to move beyond a beginner level camera, this is an outstanding choice and a fantastic value. The APS-C sensor and the X Processor 4 image processor are a great combination and they give you beautiful color and really nice results in low light. You can shoot 4K at up to 60 frames per second and Full HD or 1080p at up to 120 frames per second, which also let you do slow motion at 25% if you edit your videos at 30 frames per second. I love Fuji's line of lenses and there are outstanding, really fast primes and some excellent zoom lens options. This lets you start out with one lens and then add to your kit as your needs and budget grow. The autofocus feature is pretty good, but I do wish that there was object tracking for video. I'm extremely happy about the mic input, which lets me connect an external microphone to the camera and get much fuller audio without having to separately record it and then sync it in post-production. And the option to monitor audio using the headphone jack is a fantastic bonus for videographers. The three-way tilting screen is beautiful and bright, and although I would have liked to see a fully articulating screen instead. The X-T3 is small and portable, and it's a fantastic option for photographers that don't want a bulky and heavy camera with them, and at the same time are not willing to compromise on image quality. Very fast continuous shooting is a fantastic feature, and it's something that a lot of users are going to take advantage of. Now, Fuji definitely intended to also appeal to users who are interested in video, and the combination of features coupled with 10-bit video is very impressive. I really like the build quality and the weather seal design, and I was super comfortable using the X-T3 at the beach or while hiking. I also appreciated the excellent electronic viewfinder, the dual SD slots, and the included compact flash. You can use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to easily move images from the camera to a mobile device, and I'm happy that the Fuji Cam remote app gives you control over both photography and video features. The body alone sells for $14.99 and the kit with the 18 to 55mm lens is $18.99, which I think is an outstanding value. I'll put links in the description because there are always specials and discounts, and those links will automatically be updated with the lowest pricing. I really hope that I was able to give you a good overview of the Fuji X-T3. And if I did, please let me know by giving this video a thumbs up, tweet it, share it, and if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe and notification buttons. You can always find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Tech Gear Talk. You know what I always say, buy it nice or buy it twice. Good luck and see you soon.